Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, we've got some really interesting comments to go over from the last week and a few weeks prior so we can get caught up. If you hear your comment read aloud by myself, then you can assume that I want you to reach out to me. You can do that by emailing me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I would love to talk to you more about your comment. When you email me, please don't say, hey, you read my comment. Put the comment in there because I get tons of emails every day, please. All right, here we go. First one, Tracy, about 4 weeks ago, my brother-in-law had an encounter while night fishing in southern Indiana, Hoosier National Forest. He's skeptical about Sasquatch, but he doesn't know what he ran into. Scared him enough to pack up and leave, though. Very interesting, Tracy. Would love to chat with you more. Bluebird writes, what is the title of your friend's channel, Sasquatch in Search for Sabe? So if you look up Tate Hieronymus on YouTube, the name of the documentary series is Sasquatch, A Search for Sabe. So you can check that out. It's a great documentary series. I'm in it a few times, and he keeps coming out with great stuff. It was in my sights, and I was ready to pull the trigger. Episode 424, Bobby writes, some hunters call them Hanks in the Washitas. Very interesting. I don't know if I've heard that before. If you've heard that as well, or if you call them Hanks, put that in the comments. I would love to hear if other people use that as well. Episode 448, Alice writes, and this is the McKenzie River episode. She writes, have been horse crazy all my life. Have had one long sighting, 4 to 5 minutes, summer of 1970 in July. Was traveling with 2 horses crossing Idaho near Craters of the Moon. Wide open country. It wasn't close, but it was easy to tell it was huge. It had the long arm swing, and it was really traveling, but not running. We decided we'd stop until it got closer when we came around a curve in the road, and it was coming towards us. When we got to where the wind was blowing towards us from it, both horses started screaming and throwing themselves around in the trailer so bad we could barely keep the truck on the road at 35 to 40 miles per hour. We decided it was best to keep going. A few miles further, we saw a parking lot with a booth and several parked cars. We stopped to tell them about the grizzly bear we saw. We were informed grizz do not travel on hind legs. The man informed us we'd seen a Sasquatch. Said that people stopped in about 1 or 2 times per week all summer telling about the huge critter they'd seen. Have had other things happen through the years, but that was the only sighting. Thanks for reading. Alice. I'm not computer savvy, so... Alice, you can reach out, and I have a special phone number you can reach out if you'd like, 515-809-0165. Moving on to the Pennsylvania police officer episode, T. Garino says, my husband's family lives in Carbondale, PA, and they all hunt, etc., and his ewe cow has seen Bigfoot in that area. So I'm not sure what a ewe cow is. And if this is like a lead-in to a really bad dad joke, then I fell for it. But, yeah, I'd love to hear about what your husband's family has seen in the northeast Pennsylvania Carbondale area. In the Under Siege by Sasquatch in central Tennessee, which is Squatch and Hollers episode number 450, I believe, B. Gurr says, is it possible that the 15 to 20 trees I hear fall in a couple of weeks, most trees would go pow, then fall? Trees fall, yes. Mostly, though, they just die and fall, not pop and fall when there's no wind. I still not went to look. Had a growl of something huge, and after maybe 2 days later, I heard a squall or something. Sounded like an 800-pound sow hog that squealed, but much deeper. SMH, I have no idea. Just looking for something. Maybe someone heard these things before. I'm in Southwest Virginia, along the New River, about 2 hours from Bristol, Tennessee. Extremely interesting. Would love to talk to you about what you're experiencing. People in the comments, let me know if you've heard things or experienced things around that area as well. On a Uwharrie Bigfoot short I did a long time ago, Steven writes, I live on Cape Fear Road. We got ran out while calling coyotes at night. Roared like a PO'd gorilla. That was the last coyote hunt for me. Reach out, Steven. On a short for Barb, my interview with Barb, Dumboard writes, I don't know if it was a Bigfoot or something new, but when I was 9, me and my friend were walking home. We were walking by a closed park. I saw a lanky brown figure sitting down. I pointed it to my friend, and as we looked back to the figure, it was running at a very fast pace into the forest section. I'm not sure if this was a Bigfoot. It was too lanky, and the head didn't really resemble an ape, more like a deer or dog, more elongated. Reach out. I would love to talk to you. On episode 450, the Central Tennessee Cadillac, it's a great name, says, I had an encounter near Cornersville, Tennessee back in 1992, and user Matt responds, man, I know there was one close by about a week ago off of Spring Place Road. I get a weird feeling every night that I'm out there at a buddy's house. There's a lot of people that gave a thumbs up to Cadillacs. Could be something there. Reach out, both of you, if you'd like to share what you experienced, please. Kelly also writes, hi from the Olympic Peninsula up in the Pacific Northwest. I've heard lots of stories, especially from my crazy sister and BF, while cowboy camping in the Olympic Mountains. Yeah, no thank you. I'm a very big believer, but would have a heart attack if I saw one. Reach out. I'd love to talk to you about what you've heard over the years. Same episode, Renee writes, I have so many Bigfoot encounters from South Mississippi from 1978 through 2017. Renee, I absolutely want to talk to you. Please reach out, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Same episode, Jessica writes, my father's had 2 very close encounters. I wonder if they're drawn to certain people or if anybody even knows this much about them. Let me know, please. You know, some people actually do think that, Jessica. I'd love to talk to you more about what your family has experienced, because next comment is you saying, I've had an encounter with a Bigfoot in southern Illinois near the Shawnee National Forest. Scary by myself out there that day. Please reach out, Jessica. On the McKenzie River, Oregon episode, which is episode 445, I believe, Bain writes, my friend and I were growled by what sounded like giant monsters on separate forks of a logging road while walking into dove hunt in central Louisiana in the late 1970s on Bodcaw Road in LaSalle Parish near Bela. I felt the sound. We never went back, and that was the only time I'd ever walked on this road. I've camped alone deep in the woods and swamps for days in a row, ran along trap lines, walked miles in the woods hunting, hunted arrowheads and fossils on creeks, hunted for old home sites and bottles in remote areas, metal detected, fished all night, and I never heard anything like this. Definitely reach out. Going back to Roger's episode 450, Chris writes, nothing strange about that, bro. As a kid, I used to go out and explore the woods all day, every day. The only stipulation was I needed to get back before dark in time for dinner. My parents and most of my friends' parents let us go out and venture as far as we wanted. Nothing bad ever happened, but we never came across a Bigfoot either. I did the same thing. I would spend a lot of time in the woods growing up in the 80s and 90s. Let me know if you did in the comments as well, and if you ever ran into a Bigfoot when you were out there in the woods with you and your buddies, Stranger Things style. Be curious to know. From the Pennsylvania police officer episode, Susie writes, I live in Oil City. Driving home one night through Oil Creek Park, one ran in front of our car. It came running down a hill, took 3 steps across the road, and 1 step over the guide rail. My husband looked at me and said, "Did you see the same thing?" And the look on my face said yes. Susie, please reach out. In Harley's episode, From Terrifying Tales of the Smoky Mountains, Josephine writes, I just spoke to someone who lives in a small community in a valley in Northern California. She said that they once heard a loud howling that turned into a growl during the night. It was so loud that the next day she asked other people who lived in the community if they also heard it, and she got mixed responses. Some didn't hear it. Here's one from an older episode, episode 365, Aggressive Bigfoot Encounters of West Virginia. Saltpeter writes, since this past fall, looking in my windows, heavy breathing, growling, huffing outside the window early a.m. All paths from my home down to the creek and swamp outback have had trees knocked down, blocking the paths, scraping something against the side of the building at night, leaving round creek stones into the crook of a tree branch down near the creek, snapped birches. Strange cooing and hooting sounds around the home almost every night. They move around all night. It sounds like a fake owl. Once in a while, the voices crack and change, and one early a.m. I heard coyotes. The coyotes ended up merging together with the owl hooting things, and there was a weird outbreak of yips and cries and teeth clacking noises and an ack sound, and then all went to the owl noises again. I contacted the BFRO. Hopefully they can come over here soon. Saltpeter, I'd love to have you reach out, please. It sounds like you are in the middle of some very intense things going on at your property. Please reach out, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Nice word from Scott on episode 451, running from the mafia in Sasquatch territory. They talk about Class A sightings, but comparatively, this channel has Class A interviews. Thank you very much. It's very nice of you. Here's some comments again from the Pennsylvania police officer episode. Max writes, Carbondale Sasquatch not far from there and sees some bonker stuff on the road at 3 a.m. out here. NEPA equals Northeastern Predatory Arena. Max, reach out with what you've seen, man. I'm really interested. On the shore about aggressive Sasquatch encounters of Klawock, Ashley writes, they won't take you. I just took a picture of one in plain daylight yesterday about 50 yards away. You're welcome to share that if you'd like, Ashley. I'd love to hear more. In the There's Something in the South Missouri Woods episode, Crystal writes, I've been listening for about a month now, and I must say, my dear sir, you've got it going on. I love it. My go-to guy was Scott Carpenter forever, and always endear sweet Carrie Arnold. Cam Buckner, he told my story, and Buckeye Bigfoot did also. You can never go wrong with any one of these people with their information or stories, whatever it may be. But I was looking one afternoon for a new Bigfoot video and hit the play on accident, and could have been sweeter. I loved it. Love the way you handle yourself with people. There's no belittling or talking about them per se, or talking to a point to where you're the dictator. It's sweet and simple, and you just want them to tell your story. That's what it needs to be. Good luck, my friend. You have good afternoon and an even better tomorrow. God bless. Yes, I forgot to mention where I'm from. McCreary County, Kentucky. It sits right on the Tennessee-Kentucky state line. About 2 hours north of Knoxville, Tennessee. I've got the Daniel Boone all around me. It can get intense. Anyways, God bless. Crystal, thank you for reaching out with the kind words. If you would ever like to reach out with your story to this channel, I would love to talk to you as well. It sounds like you have been able to chat with a few individuals along the way, but the door is always welcome here. Thank you again. Ruth shares an interesting comment on episode 429, investigating Bigfoot near where the hunter was found in Alabama. She writes, I live in the foothills of the Appalachians, with no neighbors in a small mobile home smack dab in the middle of a national forest. At the time of my experience, I had 5 little Jack Russell mixed terriers, and I let them out before bedtime. And as I opened the back door to let them out, I heard a sound in the woods that was somewhere between a cry and a wail. And I stopped to listen, as did my dogs that were usually running around barking at each other. Didn't make a sound, and looked in the direction it was coming from, and didn't hang out in the yard long before they came hauling tail up the stairs, one behind the other. I stood at the back door listening until it quit. The sound was so mournful it almost brought me to tears, and at the same time scared me because my husband passed away not long ago before this happened, and I have a pistol and a .222. Both loaded, and I'm a very good shot, but won't shoot anyone or anything unless I had to. I'd like to find out if anyone else in the northwest part of Alabama, Walker County to be exact, has heard anything like what I've described. I know that years ago, a young girl and her brother saw one close to me in Nauvoo and some down on Creepy Mountain. We have the perfect areas where they can hide and plenty of wildlife, especially deer. There's 65 acres right behind me that's nothing but thick woods where nobody lives, so I'm pretty sure what I heard was a Bigfoot, and at the time, the sound of the cry, for some reason, reminded me of what a mother would sound like if she lost a child. Ruth, I'm sorry that you had such a tragic loss with your husband passing away. Please keep me in mind if things continue to happen. You're always welcome to reach out. Back to the Pennsylvania police officer. There's a few on here. Tom writes, yep, Carbondale by the Dollar General, and there's pictures. I've heard of it, but I've heard people who have seen it recently, like this year. There was, and put Lackawanna on there too, brother. Mount Cobb, 5 encounters in 3 years. Dan Gordon, I met with him once. I wonder if she's trying to say Stan Gordon. That would make sense. But Tom, please reach out. I'd love to hear what you've heard in the Northeast Pennsylvania area. There was a post I made about looking for people in a certain square region of Southeast Pennsylvania, Southeast Oklahoma. Leon reached out. Wouldn't it be the biggest interview in years if the brothers from the siege of Honobia or Honubi would allow it? I'm not sure of their age, etc., so I obviously mean if they're still breathing, but there are the family members such as the wives and kids. Unfortunately, I don't think it will ever happen due to certain occurrences that were happening on that land. So there's a lot to unpack from that. And, you know, we're not to say if things that were happening were legal or not. We're going to stay away from that. But if there's people that are listening that have contacts with people that were involved with the siege at Honubi, and you could put in a good word for me and Bigfoot Society to these individuals, I would love to talk to them, interview them, and allow them to share what really happened during this time frame, because I think it's at the point where maybe other people are telling the story, and I think people that were actually involved might want to tell the actual story. So listeners, you know what to do. Reach out to the people if you know who they are, and let's see if we can get the truth out there. Pennsylvania police officer episode, Suskin says, I live in the heart of the Suskin Screamer area, which is Suskin, PA. A close family member had a Sasquatch encounter by my house years ago. I trust and believe this individual. The PA Bigfoot Research Society came to the area and did a full investigation. They reportedly had sounds and wood knock incidents and replies. Very interesting. Feel free to reach out, my friend. Going back to the McKenzie River episode 448, Barry writes, Eugene Mushroom Hunter here. Still have not had an encounter. Once I did have something throw a huge rock in the middle of a river I was camping next to in the middle of the night just south of Oak Ridge behind Hill Creek Reservoir while camping alone. No way a rock could have rolled down any hill to do that. It was completely flat, but that's all I got. Barry, there's another area around Oak Ridge, so add it to the map. And feel free to reach out if anything else ever happens. And I hope you have good luck searching for your mushrooms in Eugene. Pennsylvania police officer episode, Jim writes, Bigfoot roared at me from a distance of about 6 feet while I slept. It rattled the air in my chest. It was so loud. Very interesting. John Boy writes on episode 453, where you're being lured into the woods. Jeremiah, I would like to talk to you about the BFRO. My friend, please reach out to me again. I have so many messages. I am lost in the swamp of them, and I appreciate each one, but it's hard to keep some straight. Please reach out to me again, my friend, and let's get that chat in. Same episode, M.I. Aboriginal writes, she was feeling them speak. They sometimes speak with harmonic resonance. It's very disorienting. Can be scary, like getting zapped. Listeners, if you have any thoughts as to that comment, please leave them in the comments of this. In the infamous Sasquatch Fought a Bear and I Found the Body episode, user writes, okay, can you answer me one thing? I myself have had several encounters over several different states, starting in Florida, starting in my early 20s, and had a 35-year gap about Ben in Washington State, Arkansas, Kansas, and now in Arizona, all with different levels of encounters. How could they know your mindset when we never know where we're going to camp till we get there? Wow, that's an interesting question. Is it just synchronicity, or is there something else going on where there could be some ability to read minds? I'm not sure myself. Listeners, let me know what you think in the comments. In 10 years of Bigfoot encounters in southern New York, Avalon writes, I live in western New York State, south of Buffalo. I've had some strange experiences. Please reach out. Love to hear what you're experiencing in that area, because western New York, I'm finding, is a super strange area. Episode 327, Bigfoot in Iowa, my Van Meter Visitor Festival presentation from 2023. Rashad writes, I'm from Des Moines and I had to listen when I saw the title. I appreciate that another person from Des Moines ran into this particular Bigfoot in Iowa talk. Listeners, if you're from Iowa or you're from Des Moines or you know stuff about Iowa Bigfoot, please reach out. I love listening or talking to people about Iowa Bigfoot, any of the state forests in the state. I'd love to talk to you about your encounters that you've had. So please reach out to me. Denny's episode, Real Estate Agent Shares His Bigfoot Encounters in Oklahoma. Linda writes, I can tell you without a doubt that it was Bigfoot that broke into that cabin, and the odor that was burning your eyes was definitely Bigfoot. Linda, I would love to know what you know. It sounds like you're very adamant about what that is. Sue Ann writes on the same episode, can't wait to talk to Denny at our next closing. Your friendly, believing closing agent. ATASL. Sue Ann, thanks for reaching out in the comments. If you've ever had any Bigfoot encounters or know anything about Bigfoot down in that area, please reach out as well. Love to talk to you. Was it Bigfoot or Dogman? Episode 456. Relax writes, wish he'd share the closest town. I live in East Texas. That's scary knowing there could be Dogman or Dogmen close to me. I'm in Smith County. So Relax, sometimes, more than often than not, a lot of people for some reason in East Texas don't like to really share where they're at. And that's a really interesting thing, right? But unfortunately, in this case, I'm not able to share what the closest town is. Maybe I could say it might be time to lock your doors. I'm sure you'll be good. Space on Joe the Sasquatch Whisperer in the Bigfoot of Mark Twain writes, good interview. I wonder, do women have less threatening encounters? I haven't heard a female ever say they got a bluff charge. You know, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever interviewed a female individual that has been bluff charged either. Let me know in the comments, guys. If you are a female and you've ever got bluff charged, I would love to hear about your story. Going on, East Texas Terror, a hunter's encounter with Sasquatch. Relax again, same commenter. I live in Lindale and I've been fishing at Lake Fork many times. I used to go there every weekend for months on end. One night we went to an area that was private property and had to cross a fence and walk in about a quarter mile. It was super quiet and spooky for some reason. After about 45 minutes, we started hearing something walking about 60-ish feet, the woods between us and where we parked at the road. It was definitely footsteps. My BF said, hey, and it stopped walking. We never heard it start walking again, which was creepy. The hair on our neck was standing up. We decided to leave. It was a scary fast walk out back to the truck. And it felt like we were definitely being watched. There was another place we stayed in a cabin on Lake Fork way in the woods. Felt creeped out there too. This was before Bigfoot was on my radar. I've heard many stories about the area since then. I'm not surprised they're there. I believe it. Feel free to reach out if you ever want to share any of the stories you've heard in the Lake Fork area. In the Bigfoot 10 attack, episode 455, New Hampshire, Saltpeter says, I've had some activity over here in Grafton, New Hampshire for the last couple of years, up near Mount Cardigan. Saltpeter, you got to reach out to me. I'd love to hear what you've been experiencing. Pennsylvania police officer Mandy writes, who's medics run Mike? I live just a few miles up the road and never heard of this. From what I remember, it's the name for a regional Bigfoot in that area. I believe that Matt, the police officer, talks about who medics run Mike is in that episode. Might be worth taking another listen. Last Stand at the LBL, which is Martin Grove's re-release, D-Payne writes, with reports that some of them fighting, it's shocking that there are reports of them working together. That's a great point. I love it. Pennsylvania police officer, this is a really interesting comment. Public writes, and I apologize in advance, I'm going to mispronounce some of these words as this is from Australia. In Australia, the Ngatnadurara tribe of the Western Desert, call them loosely translated to Featherfoot. They leave tracks, but it is near impossible to track them because their hair brushes the sand away as they walk, usually dragging feet. I've heard them bark, mimicking our dogs, have heard them yell my name with my brother's voice, even though he was right beside me. He heard it clear as day as well. After growing up in the communities and hunting, traveling, living with the Aboriginal families of mine, you learn at a young age not to trust noises, voices, calls you hear at nighttime. They will play games with you, trying to lure you out to the dark. Who knows what the plan is once they get you, or how many people they actually get following the calls and the noises they make. One thing we do have is some sticks beside us when sitting around fires or beside our bed, to break them if you hear a call. I could never work out why, but once we heard the usual calls and shouts of the feathers, my grandfather grabs a stick, snapped it, and then waited. A few seconds later, we heard a stick snap from the direction we heard the calls, and for the rest of the night, nothing. We had peace. Breaking the stick gets them to answer the same way. Perhaps it's a form of communication, or a way of saying, I'm here. It's all good. Who knows? But to this day, I now live in a rural area on the opposite side of the country. I still sleep with a stick beside my bed. I've heard similar calls and sounds in the bush where I live now. Always been intrigued by them. They definitely exist. But I think they can turn invisible or something. Perhaps they're from another dimension and can slip between this and whatever dimension they are from. That is a fascinating look into Australian culture that I didn't know. Thank you for sharing that. In episode 250, which was about the Freeman Bigfoot files, which is a great book, you should check it out. User Ova writes, the perspective Mike, referring to Michael Freeman, offers regarding his dad and the credibility makes the biggest impact on how most people view the video. It sounded hokey before hearing the whole story as Mike depicts his dad in the background. You know, I agree that, and especially once you read the book and you hear the audio from Paul Freeman outside of what you know about the video, really lays out what Paul Freeman went through all those years. On 10 years of Bigfoot encounters in southern New York, Artemis writes, I live in Orange County, Hudson Valley, which makes up another few counties, Sullivan, Ulster, and so on. I have tracks I found in the snow once, out trapping many years ago, and as somebody who used to trap from October all the way into March, there are things that I've heard and there are things that I've definitely seen that most people won't understand. Artemis, you're welcome to reach out. I would love to talk to you about what it is you've experienced. Running from the Mafia in Sasquatch territory, 451, Candace writes, family just moved to Shannon, wondering where your family lived and what area did you hear sounds? Mark was able to actually reach out and say exactly where it is. So if you want to know, it's in that episode in the comments. Skinwalker Ranch of Minnesota, 321. That's Beltrami County, Minnesota. Sandy writes, I live around the same area and they are indeed here. Sandy, I would love to hear and talk to you about what it is you're experiencing. Please reach out to me. Sasquatch fought a bear and I found the body. Tyler writes, when he says they do that thing with their mouth like a wood knock pop, heard that 2 of them within 50 feet of me, and I thought at first it was knocks, but it was too consistent of a tone to be taking an object and hitting it against something. I think kind of like how a human can flick their cheek and breathe out And if you do it right, it sounds like a water drop. Absolutely. I get it. And I'm on board with you, Tyler. Great idea. In the comments, let me know if you agree or disagree with what Tyler was saying. So, a kind word came in from user Frickin', researching the area that horrified Scott Carpenter. That's Harley's episode. This channel is gold. Thank you for your time working on this topic. This content is absolutely professionally refreshing. The sound is very mournful, maybe a funeral. Very interesting thought, and thank you for the kind words. I put my hardest work effort into it. Also on that same episode, here's a really interesting comment. Whippoorwill says, thanks for sharing Harley's research. Just recently started listening to audio clips of Sasquatch. When I listened to this one, I thought of mournful singing or a mating type of call. My son overheard this audio and said, go listen to Jurassic Park 1 from 1993 to the Brachiosaurus tree scene. Found the clip on YouTube, lined them up side by side in my browser, and there are similarities. That got me thinking, which added a lot more questions. How old are these creatures? We know they mimic. Also, as a follower of Scott's research, he definitely had respect for these creatures and their habitat, and I'm not sure if the area horrified him. He stated himself he didn't have fear, but he did have a lot of respect. In my opinion, extreme caution should be used when researching and interacting. Sasquatch have a tendency to mark those that know, and at times follow those people home. Deeply concerned for researchers with children and pets. This is very serious. New sub. Whippoorwill, I appreciate you being along for the ride, and that is a super interesting thing that your son did, where he found the similarities between the Brachiosaurus from Jurassic Park 93 and Harley sounds. I love it. We were chased out of the woods by 4 Bigfoot. This is an older one, a 344. This is the undisclosed woods in Iowa. Relax writes, were you able to hear anything off his recording? So I have tried. Oh, have I tried? Multiple times to get access to that recording. The trick is that it is stuck on the phone. The other friend was able to listen to it, and he said that, unfortunately, the quality of the recording is so bad that, 1, we can't hear anything. 2, you can't get it. So that was pretty disheartening to hear. But hey, maybe something will come from it in the future. But for now, nothing's going to come from it. But good call on checking on that. From Surviving the Night, The Lone Guardian versus the Bigfoot, which is a recent one. Yeshua writes, hey, Jeremiah, you'll not believe this. I've been hired by the Forest Service to be a lookout this summer. I will be up in a tower in Central Oregon all this summer. If I see any Sasquatch, hope never, you'll be the first to know. Oh, man, this is wild. You've got to have some kind of thermal thing up there with you in order to look out in the dark and see if you, oh, man, you got to get some kind of thermal thing. Definitely. Thank you for letting me know. Reach out if you ever see anything. Hopefully you don't, but if you do, you know who to call. You know who to contact. Same episode, Joey. Oh, I want to know where in Ohio so bad. You and everyone else, no doubt. Easy Pilot says, to me, the Bigfoot are very primitive, like way lower than our lowest caste caveman. Their only weapon is rocks. They just rip out guts of prey animals with their hands and eat that and hang out in filth. They seem smart the way they stalk humans, but they many times look bewildered when they watch humans. They are way below humans, but smart enough to know it. There's a lot there. I would ask how you know all that. I'm curious. I can reach out and let me know how you know all those interesting thoughts. In Bigfoot Stalks Hunters in Montana, 408, T. Bartlett writes, I grew up in New Hampshire, and it wasn't until I moved to Raymond, New Hampshire, that I had a sighting. Near the state park, which is Piscataway, not sure of the spelling. Hey, I'm not sure of the pronunciation. It was about 6 feet tall, looking in my bedroom window from a nearby hill in the back of my house. It was foggy at the time. I think it was gray and still silver, but it was after dark. Also close to Bear Brook State Park, about 20 miles as the crow flies. Extremely interesting. Back to Roger's episode 450, Under Siege by Sasquatch. Mary writes, My wife and I heard one loud howl behind our house on Yell Road between Lone Oak Cemetery and the Duck River Electric Office on the large gas line route. Thank you for sharing. Please keep me in mind if there's anything else that occurs. In one of my Salt Fork episodes, Terrified at this Ohio Park, Joe writes, I will not go back to Salt Fork back in the 1980s deer hunting. I seen something. I was lost in the woods. I don't like the woods at all. Joe, if you'd like to talk about what you've seen in Salt Fork area in a safe environment, please reach out to me, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I did re-release Martin Grove's account from Monster Fest 1 in 2023, and there's been quite a response to it. A lot of people didn't catch it the first time. Eddie writes, interesting. I bow hunted there as a boy and walked in and out of the woods in many a dark night. Never had any issues. It's the reply that will get you. Here we go. Firstifer writes, my late stepfather bow hunted there for many years until he saw a large hairy type thing with pointy ears crawling like a spider. He said he thought it was stalking a deer, and he was in his tree stand 100 yards or so away and watched it go up and over a ridge crawling like that. It was his favorite place to hunt, but he never went back, ever. This happened in the late 70s, early 80s. He wasn't the type to tell tales either. Just goes to show, guys. And we hear this a lot in the comments. Well, I went to this area and never had an experience. Just because you never had an experience there doesn't mean that experiences don't happen there. No matter what side you're on, I had an experience or I didn't. I still appreciate you sharing what happened to you in that area. Thank you. From the Bigfoot sightings updates in Marshall County, Tennessee, Tammy writes, all areas of Tennessee are infested with wood boogers. That's another name for Bigfoot. Basically, we have deer and bodies of water everywhere. So where there's natural prey, these things exist. I do think they're migratory in my area of West Tennessee. Very interesting. Same episode, Tammy also writes, I'm a brand new listener as of last night. Love it. Thank you so much. Welcome to the ride. What episode did Roger from Squatch and Holler tell his experience? Episode 450 is where you can reach it, believe. By the way, I'm in East Tennessee, believer but not a knower. Well, I think I might have gotten a glimpse in West Memphis, Arkansas, and another on I-75 North between Chattanooga and Knoxville, but I wouldn't swear in a court of law to either. Anyway, Roger's episode number, please. Try episode 450. If not, reach out. Speaking of number 450, the next one is by Still Hoping from that episode. I swear, I wish I could make a video of all the things that I have seen. I'm 65 years old, and I spend all of my time in the woods, on rivers and lakes. That's just my life. Can't be any other way. I sure wish that I had a camera phone back in the day. I've seen some things, sometimes with witnesses. I wish I had some friends that I could talk to and tell about some of the things. You will never convince me they're not. UFOs started in 1965. It's hard for me to believe that not everyone has seen these things. Never any Bigfoots well out. I did get one on my security camera, over 7 feet tall, but no one will listen. They see the video and try to say it's a deer. You're welcome to reach out. I'll listen to what you have to say, and if you want to send anything for me to look at, I'll do it. Michael writes on, I saw Sasquatch in southeast Oklahoma. I think it's episode 350. He says, okay, don't want to steal anyone's thunder here, but I was born and raised in the woods you're calling X. Interesting. To put your mind at a tad bit of ease, you guys were punked by the Honobi Choctaw Bigfoot. He is 6 feet, 4 inches tall. Don't know his weight because I don't see him much anymore, but he knows how to have fun with tourists. Sorry, guys, but it ain't happening. Michael, I would love to know what you know. Does this mean that someone is pranking everyone in the Area X area of southeast Oklahoma, or there's a Bigfoot that is just a rascally dude, a rascally rabbit? Let me know. I'd love to have you reach out. Going back to Denny's Southeast Oklahoma Bigfoot encounter, real estate agent Steve writes, we rented a cabin, more like a mansion, outside of Broken Bow Thanksgiving 2022. Wife was on the back deck, which is about 15, I would guess, feet off the ground, when she heard something growling that was definitely bigger than a dog. She didn't think much of it at first, but then she heard it again. She hightailed it back into the cabin and didn't say anything to any of us until we got home. I think she thought I might go looking for it. We were out in the boonies. I'm guessing that didn't happen, but Steve, reach out to me if there's more to share, and I hope you guys were okay. Pennsylvania police officer Karen writes, Central PA most certainly have BF family unions. My buddy has seen 1 to 4 individuals at a time. It's in an area that no one would ever expect. They've shown themselves to him on 5 separate occasions. They don't bother him, and he doesn't bother them. We have both agreed that the location he continues to see them, it will not be disclosed to anyone. We don't need to kill one to prove their existence. There's plenty of sightings, events documented on record, i.e. BFRO Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Karen, if you'd like to share more with me, welcome to reach out to me, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Episode 429, investigating Bigfoot near where the hunter was found in Alabama. User writes, I just found your channel and I'm hooked. Thank you. Welcome to the ride. I've lived in northeastern Alabama for 40 plus years and I've always been perplexed at the lack of Bigfoot stories or encounters, but apparently I haven't been talking to the right people. That's for sure. There's a lot in your state. I was astonished at the number of accounts coming out of Tennessee, not because a sighting seems unlikely in this region, but because around these parts, Bigfoot is rarely talked about. Needless to say, the title here caught my immediate attention as I'm unfamiliar with this instance and am incredibly intrigued. The purpose of my comment is to share a quote that came to mind when pondering why so many people still today doubt the existence of these beasts, and that is this: just because you don't believe it doesn't change the fact that it is true. Interesting. I agree. So I think it speaks volumes and might just make naysayers think a little deeper, or perhaps cause them to have a more open mind when it comes to these channels. Anyway, glad I found your male-dominated channel. LOL, love it. Okay, so I need to address this because every day I'm thinking, Jeremiah, you have too many guys on the channel that you interview. Too many guys. And I'll be honest, all the time I'm trying to reach out to female investigators and witnesses to get them on the channel. And guys, it is hard for some reason. I do have some lined up for future episodes. You'll probably be seeing those in about 3 to 4 weeks. So, user, I'm trying to get some on, but man, if you're a female investigator, researcher, or a witness that's seen a Bigfoot, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I should go on the Bigfoot Society and share. Why hasn't he asked me? Please reach out. I would love to have you on the show and get more of a female representation through my podcast. Pennsylvania police officer, frankly speaking, writes, wow, I solo RV camper van throughout Pennsylvania on state forest land. I've never seen anything odd. Well, other than the tree branch structures placed in the middle of nowhere, always associated with the big guy from TV shows. I do have motion detection security cameras on all corners. Well, that's why you're not seeing anything probably. As well as one 360-degree motion that follows when it sees camera always facing the woods. When that was mentioned that it may not like cameras and notice them, I felt more at ease. Yeah, you're not going to see anything with that setup. I'm just going to say if this thing comes to bother me and I get a clear shot, I'm calling everyone. Plus, the best evidence ever produced, a body. Well, I'd have to say, my friend, it is your decision since you're an adult, but if you do decide to go down that road, be aware there's probably 2 brothers of that Bigfoot nearby, and you may not be, it could end badly. Just be advised. But your decision definitely trumps any grainy or AI-generated looking video anyways. Cameras and cell phones are everywhere, and people still think it's a hoax. Last stand at the LBL, Martin Grove's account. Is there a part 2, Melissa writes? There's not, but there's an episode coming out soon in about a week or so. Actually, it'll already be out after this one. now that I think about it. Make sure you hit the Monster Fest 2 episode. There'll be a follow-up for Mountain Groves in it. It's about 10-15 minutes, but it's great. Denny's Southeast Oklahoma Bigfoot Encounters episode. Texas Honey writes, moved up to Oklahoma 2 years ago, and I've heard so many stories. Please reach out. I'd love to hear all about them. In episode 370, I live at Bigfoot Springs in East Texas. Rusty Nail writes, I live in West Tennessee, and in early May 2024, my brother and I went to Northeast Texas to visit my cousin. He lives in a small community north of Tyler and west of Jefferson. He has about 200 acres of land, mostly wooded, and on the property is a creek and a spring. He has deer, hogs, and has seen bear and cougar on his property. Later on that afternoon, my brother, cousin, his 8-year-old daughter, and myself drove into the woods to shoot guns. I drove his four-wheeler, his daughter drove her small four-wheeler, and my brother and cousin drove a Menandra Roxy. We shot for about an hour, and my cousin said we need to get back to the house because his wife would have dinner ready. He told me to lead the way, his daughter behind me, and they would follow on the Roxor. I drove about 100 yards, and all of a sudden, about 50 yards away, out from the right woods, out stepped a creature on 2 legs, all black, white, a white facial area. It stopped in the middle of the trail and looked at me. My first thought was, that's someone in a Bigfoot suit, and I stopped and yelled, Bigfoot! It then scurried across the trail and went into the woods on the other side. I drove up to the spot where it entered the woods, expecting to see someone running and laughing, but there was nothing. I looked behind me and no one was there. I turned around and drove until I found my brother and cousin pulling his daughter's four-wheeler out of the woods, and she was standing there red-faced and crying. I asked what happened, and my cousin said she saw something and it scared her. She had backed her three-wheeler up, jumped off, and it must have kicked it into first gear, and it flew off into the woods. I told them I saw something too. They said, what? I said, Bigfoot. They were dumbfounded. I explained what had happened, and my brother said it was a bear. And I said, no, bears don't walk on 2 legs like a human. Editor note, sometimes they do, but it's not common. Well, why didn't you take a picture? I said. I was driving. My phone was in my pocket, and the whole incident only lasted about 5 seconds. My description is that it wasn't very big, hard to tell because no trees beside it to guess its size. It was so far away that I couldn't make out any facial features. It didn't look huge like you see on the ground that we could see. My cousin told us there had been a sighting several weeks before, and about 4 miles away at a lake or swampy area. I know what I saw wasn't human, and that's my experience, and I stand by it. They are real. That's a fascinating account. You're welcome to reach out. Thank you for leaving that. Face-to-face with dog. The face-to-face with Bigfoot and my dog paid the price. Episode 449. This is an intense episode. Space writes, wow, Frank's story was the most incredible episode. I agree. Frank's story is very intense. I'm so sorry he lost his best friend. It'll be good to see him in person in Oregon. I agree. I look forward to meeting Frank as well. Episode 461. My house was attacked by Bigfoot in Astoria, Oregon. Dr. Shred writes, sounds like the house she lives in was built on a possible burial ground or some sort of sacred site. Might explain a lot with the Bigfoot activity in Shadow Walkers. You know what? You might not be too far off. It sounds like that area that this individual is in is a very, very interesting area. She might not be the only one that's experiencing issues, if you remember that from the episode. Bigfoot sighting updates from Marshall County, Tennessee. BR writes, let's form a club, make patches, buy all kinds of expensive equipment, and chase after something that is immeasurably more powerful, not mentioned intelligent than we are. To each his own, but it's getting ridiculous. Hey, we're having a good time. And yeah, maybe we have patches. I know I have patches myself. I have Bigfoot Society patches. They're fun. I know this is kind of a facetious comment, but to everyone that's in the Bigfoot Society, I appreciate you all. If you do want to be a part of Bigfoot Society, one way is you can listen to the episodes and share them with a friend on YouTube, or make sure you're subscribed on any major podcast platform. Another way is you can become a YouTube channel member to get the extra episodes. You can also, if you really want to be in the community and do all the extra stuff that we do, you can go over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And for less than a cup of coffee a month, you get so many crazy benefits. It's insane. So BR, thanks for leaving that comment so I could jump in here with this. And as always, guys, I read every comment that's left, even the extremely inappropriate ones. Guys, just be nice. Please be nice. Everyone's welcome to watch the show. Not everyone is welcome to comment on it. I will mute your account if you attack a witness or guest on the show. To me, I'm trying to make a place where witnesses feel safe to share, and that's that. I'm sticking to it. So there you go. Usually have a live call-in show every Saturday or Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to know when I'll be going live, and I will talk to you guys next time. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. All right, Bigfoot Society, if you have an encounter, a sighting, anything weird, Bigfoot related or not Bigfoot related that's happened in a state forest in Iowa, reach out to me directly, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. The focus is state forests in Iowa. Thank you. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
Her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.